Okay, so if we could just start the recording, please. So we do record these sessions. So just start off by acknowledging the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community, and pay our respects to their elders past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. And I'm assuming we're from all around the country here today as usual. I'm on the lands of the Larrakia people, the saltwater people in the Darwin region in the NT. Having a look at today's agenda, we'll give you Christina will give an update on the UET full training product progression and some adjusted timelines and just some input on where we are with developing drafts. We have had some drafts out on the website, so we will run through some feedback we've received on those so far. So that'll be Phil and myself running you through that. And Christina will take the CVIG, so the Companion Volume Implementation Guide and Implementation Promotion and Monitoring for PSO. What's the difference and why that differential matters? And then we'll have a talk about what you want around the room, town hall topics for our upcoming July, and then onwards from July. Open up to the floor, questions and answers. There will be, particularly when we go through those draft trading product feedback, there'll be opportunities for questions along the way. But just a reminder, anytime you want to ask a question, if you can just pop your hand up. If you have microphone issues, etc., you can also pop it in the chat. There'll be some PSO people monitoring that. So we'll endeavour to get to your questioning. So I will hand over to Christina.
Thanks, Brett. All right, so let's have a look at where we're at with the UEE review. So what you'll see on this slide is it may look a bit, why are you parking so many or retiring so many training products? What we're doing here is, as we are merging and refining our training product within the UEE training package, our system is identifying these changes as being parked or retired. That allows us to go through and update the CVIG mapping for you later down the track. So what is most important for you is that we have 281 unique training products in development progress, which is fantastic, and 276 of those have not been started. You will have seen on our website there were a couple of qualifications that were out for initial feedback as part of our transparency model. And over the next couple of months, we will be releasing more qualifications and units of competency and skill sets as we go along. So just an update, all of our SME groups and technical committees are now into a heavy workload of drafting units of competency, which is really exciting for you all. What I want to talk to you about right now, though, is that we, a few weeks ago, as a team, we sat down and looked at our timelines and how we would ensure that we would meet get this out onto training.gov for you as soon as we can without compromising any of the quality behind the revision that we are under. So on our website for this month's update and the progression tab, we'll provide you with a PDF, an A3 PDF of this timeline because we've put it across 2 slides. So you'll be able to download that. But what is really important, if we go back to the first slide there, Rach, is that between now and October, we will be looking at completing the drafts of all of the training products that we have in our scope. So last town hall, we identified that there are 74 qualifications and we're bringing that down to 24. It's now back up to about 28 based on a few things and revisions. So what we will see moving forward is that of those 28 quals over July through to October, you will see the final qual structure and the units that support that. Internally, we have implemented a number of moderation sessions with the TPD team and our quality assurance manager as well, to ensure that there is consistency in the language used in the training product, so that when you pick up the training product, especially your units of competency, and you go to your PCs, that the PCs are written in a consistent manner so that you're not looking at currently, we've identified that there are some where one PC is written in 7 different ways that we've counted, meaning the same thing, and that's a bit annoying when you're the developer at the other end trying to interpret all of this, what we're trying to attend. So we've implemented moderation sessions to ensure that we capture as much of those differences and ensure that there's consistency moving forward. In addition, at the end of July, August and September in particular, Ryan, he's on the call right now, and Jess, they will be coming to the RTOs in particular and other stakeholders to let them know, or let you know, when we put out qualifications and the units of competency associated with those qualifications up onto our website for initial feedback, so that you can provide that feedback. It's been fantastic, people getting into the website already and giving us feedback for us to work with. Moving forward, you'll see end of July, end of August, and end of September, 3 lots of batches coming out for you to review. Then in October, what you'll see is that we will be doing a final, or finalising those drafts, and November we will then be going through and doing a final quality assurance review on this prior to putting it out for official government and public consultation. So if we go to the next slide, in December, all going to plan. So this is clearly subject to change as always, but this is our plan and we hope to be able to achieve this. We will release all training products for the UEE on the 18th of September and commence our official government and public consultation period. We know that you'll be on leave over that time. But there are some people that this may be the only time that you have the ability to review things without the other 100 things that you need to do in your day. That's why we're releasing it over this time period, and why we are extending the official consultation period to March. Officially under the TPOF, we only need to provide a minimum of 4 weeks for this stage of the consultation. However, based on the complexity and the volume of training products that will be out for this training package, we believe that having it out there for a few months is the most appropriate and fair way for you as the stakeholders to be able to go in and have a look at it. What you'll also then see come March is that we will then review all of that feedback one more time. So throughout that whole period, we will be responding and reviewing and updating training products where we need to based on the feedback coming in. But we will then close off the public and government consultation period and then fix up any products, take that to the technical committee in April. we will do a final moderation session internally, and then we will send it to the senior responsible officers of each jurisdiction to sign off. Again, under the TPOF, SRO checks are a minimum of 2 weeks. Based on the complexity and volume of this, we believe that the SROs need at least a month to work with their stakeholders, including ITABs and state training authorities, to ensure that they have one more opportunity to get final feedback. But based on all of the strategies we've put in place where we're working with these groups closely now and up until that point, we hope that that period will be quite easy for our SROs. The plan is to submit every product into JUA by the latest of the 1st of June. From there, we are then in holding pattern. According to the TPOF assurance process, part of the framework should last up to 6 weeks, but we anticipate that this might be a bit longer due to the volume and the complexity again of the project. So at that point, we will keep you informed of the progress, and as soon as we are told that it's all ready to go, we will definitely let you know. So any questions based on that before we move on? Oh, perfect. So now I'm going to hand over to, actually, no, I'm going to do one more bit and then I'm handing over. So there's a few things we want to just reiterate. Part of the process and part of our transparency and no surprises approach is this, we're getting in early feedback. So July, August, September, you'll see more product being put up onto our website for you to provide your comments on. It's about building confidence in your in you, for us, that you know that we are doing the right thing by you as our stakeholders and the end users of the product. It's allowing us to gather initial feedback early, and it allows us to then implement that feedback into the development while we still have the tech committee available and the SME groups running. And we are hoping that by taking this approach, we will enhance this process and make it smoother for all concerned. And like we said last month, ultimately it's about our core principle in this project is building trust with you and within the system, so that you have no surprises when we release the training product up onto the National Register and you enter into your transition phase. So what is currently up on our website is your Cert 2 in Electronics, Cert 3 in Electrotechnology, Cert 3 in Instrumentation and Control, your Cert 4 in Electrical Equipment in Hazardous Areas, Diploma of Electrotechnology Systems, and your Cert 3 in Fire Detection and Control. So Rach has put a link in the chat that will take you straight to the products that are available. They've been out for some time. We will close down that period of feedback at the end of this month. Again, you will see these products come out through July, August or September, and again in December for the official government and consultation period. So if you miss this round, there are still multiple chances available for you to provide feedback on that, on the products that are available. One of the things that we do want you to just be mindful of, though, if we go to the next slide, Rach, is that when you are looking at those products, we've been very purposeful in providing a change summary cover sheet for you. We really would like you to make sure that you've read the change summary. it provides you with a really quick overview and a high level overview of what has changed within that particular document. So from the old to the new, if it's a new unit, it will say that it's a new unit, and all of that kind of stuff. It is about providing you with the context behind why those changes were made, and the impacts that will have. Because a lot of people are not part of the SME groups, so this is about trying to convey the discussions and the reasoning behind why the SME and the technical committee have approved or supported the changes. So I implore you, before diving straight into the actual training product, which is after these pages, read the summary cover sheet to understand the context. And that's probably all I really wanted to say in relation to this. So, yes, Christy, yes, the revised timeline will be updated on the website. Any questions before I hand over to Brett and Phil? Ready?
All right, so we'll just have a bit of a run through of some topics that we've heard so far. Some feedback we've heard so far, and it'd be no surprise that most of it to most people in the room, that most of it has centred on the Cert 3 electrician qualification that is up on the website. We do have some bits and pieces on some of the other quals that are up there as well. But if we start off with the foundation skills, so stakeholders raised concerns about the removal of foundation hand skills units of competencies from the Cert 3 electrician qualification. So this was specifically referring to the removal of fabricate, assemble and dismantle utility industry components, so CD19 for those in RTO land, and CD20 fix and secure electrode technology equipment. And the concerns were around the loss of those practical skills, it may be falling more back on employers, etc., that you can see there on the screen. So just for some context for that, when we went to our SME group and then also our technical committee and looked at these units and their suitability for the Cert 3 electrician qual, CD19, so the fabrication unit, some of the current content is, how to operate a bench drill, sheet metal, including folding of sheet metal, tapping and threading. And we asked, is that what Cert 3 electrician apprentices are doing in the workplace? And the feedback from the SMEs and the tech committee was probably not. CD20, the fix and secure, while that's more relevant to apprentice electricians, it didn't include any termination or installation of wiring and components, because it was also being used in various other qualifications across the scope of the UEE package. So it was decided that those units probably belonged at Cert 2 level, but to bring them into the core of the Cert 2 qualification rather than as electives, because really at Cert 2 we want to get hands-on as much as we can. And it gives them a broad use of tools, etc., workshop practices. They've been revised to make sure they sit at Cert 2 level for one, and revised to allow for contextualisation and more project-based learning in basic tool and workshop skills, that they're then transferable across all the UEE Cert 3 qualifications when you move from that Cert 2 as your basis and progress onto a Cert 3. So in regards to the electrician qual, though, we have developed a new unit, and the change summary probably mightn't have been clear enough in the intent of the new unit, because we said that the other two units have been removed with no direct replacement, and that was purely because they are going to be used in the Cert 3, so there'll be a superseded revised type unit. So we have developed that unit you can see on the screen there, apply fundamental electrical trade skills specifically for the Cert 3 electrician qual. And we have developed another draft that has the working title at the moment of Used Tools in an Electro-Technology Work Environment. And it's for wider use across the UEE Cert 3s, including, for example, electronics. And we've really written that unit where it's designed to be contextualised across those different quals that might pick up that unit where CD 19 or 19 and 20 has been removed. The option is there if those qualifications and the SME groups think that they need a basic workshop hand tools type unit. There's that one that's not specifically linked to the electrician skills where we can include install. So that's been the aim of the unit name you can see on the screen there, is to get an early workshop unit focusing on skills required in the early stage of an electrical apprenticeship. And I've just popped up the unit application there for that particular unit. So this unit describes the skills and knowledge required to apply fundamental hand skills used in electrotechnology trade work. It focuses on the use of hand and power tools used by electricians for the preparation, termination and installation of cables and equipment. It covers the installation of cable support and containment systems and fixing methods used in common electrical installation environments. This unit applies to individuals in the electrical trade and undertaking work under direct supervision. And I think the last line, really important there, it supports the development of skills and knowledge required for further electrical installation, testing and commissioning activities. So it's really the building block for later units in the Cert 3 electrician qualification, where they're doing that installation, testing, commissioning. So it's a real introduction type unit. And the reason we had to do two separate ones was really around that, being able to put some installation of cables into this unit that is outside the scope of people not in that electrician apprenticeship. So that's that's our first sort of point of concern or feedback we got. Was there any questions before I hand over to Phil for the next part? Kirsty?
I suppose from an implementation point of view, what would be lovely, because we have so many RTOs and so many different perspectives, is if there was some sort of document that says, okay, if you've done 19 and 20, then if you would then go into this unit, that this is the gap training that's required, and this is specifically the gap training that's required, because sometimes working in RTOs, you'll see that one RTO might credit because they got this and this, and another RTO hasn't credited it because they don't deem it. They looked at it differently. Personal perspective becomes very integral here. Is that a thing that we might have?
Certainly mapping is part of the CVIG, and also potentially in IPM, in that implementation, promotion and monitoring if it doesn't live in the CVIG. And Christina will go into a bit more of what lives in both areas later. But yeah, we would certainly try and provide as much information around mapping units and the gaps, etc., across that, Kirsty.
Yeah, I know specifically in the last transition when we went from, I think, what was the old series parallel to 4644, there was some very different interpretation on whether there was gap or not gap, or so a document that actually specified, if you've done 43 and if you did this unit, then you would get it is equivalent to this and there is no gap training required, or no, there is gap training required and this is what it is.
Yeah, and I think in the instance of those units in the old sieving and mapping, it was literally one line saying that those units align to the content or something. So yeah, we try and expand as much as we can, and particularly because quite a few of us at PSO in the training package development space had been in RDO world before, so we know the pain of dealing with compliance, etc. So we're going to try and alleviate as much of that as we possibly can. Might not be able to alleviate it all, but
no, any help is appreciated. Thank you.
Anyone else on that, those foundation units being removed from the electrician qual?
Michael Smith has a question in the chat.
Michael says, has consideration for adding measuring instruments to this unit? I'd have to have a look at the draft again, Michael, to have a look what's actually in it, but so yeah, sorry, can't answer that one off the cuff. It's been a while since we've had that draft sort of in the system with the SMEs, etc. So we can take that on board and let you know. All right, I might hand over to Phil.
No worries. Thanks, Brett. So one of the other questions that came up as part of those early feedback and that early draft is about the prerequisites and prerequisite requirements and that question. And look, it's a really good question. I suppose a simple way for us to approach that is, look, and as Christina said, the idea is we get the drafts out early so everyone can have a bit of a look at them and provide the feedback. And, you know, in some cases, probably we can probably be a little bit clearer, but the idea around the drafts was getting the content and validating what the requirements were for the units of competency. So our position at PSO to date hasn't really been to focus in on the prerequisites. Now, we want your feedback on prerequisites, but as you can see on the other side of the screen there, is that in some of those electrical type units, you had massive lists of prerequisites for some units. And were they actually essential to achieving competency in the unit that they were in? In most cases, they weren't. And I suppose the TPOF is very structured in what it says now and what we can and can't do. And it's very clear that a prerequisite must be essential to achieving the competency of the unit of competency that it needs to be. And it's not about controlling sequencing. So we haven't made those final decisions on where the prerequisites sit at this stage. There will be units of competency that have prerequisites. You know, there's probably no ifs and buts about that. You know, you need to have certain underpinning knowledge before you can go on to do some units of competency. You know, in the case when we get to those later year units of competency around the EL39s or currently the capstone unit, you know, it will have some prerequisites attached to it. But yeah, just so you know, when you are looking at those units of competency, the qualifications, just be wary that the prerequisites aren't set in stone. But obviously, if you've got some comment on them, please send them forward. We're open to that feedback and want that feedback. And it's probably the next task now that our structures are pretty much in place for most of our qualifications or getting pretty close. Our SME groups will be turning to that prerequisite requirement and working out where the prerequisites sit for all those units of competency. So yeah, that's reasonably quick one on the prerequisites, but open to any questions on that. Yeah.
There is one from Brett Upton in the chat, Phil, around the grandfather statement. Those holding an unrestricted electrical licence or equivalent issued in Australian territory meet the requirements of this unit and its prereqs, and as to whether that will still be in capstone in this update.
Yep. The components of the training package are pretty strict in what we need to apply to. Now, at this stage, we realise how important that statement is that sits in the application, but we're pretty sure that we can't put that exact wording into our application of our unit of competency. But we're going to be looking at where we can put the right wording around there. Like, we understand that, you know, if you've got an electrical license and you want to do some upskilling, you know, you're not going to go back to scratch to be able to sit and do those units of competency that you need to be doing. So we definitely be looking at that. We've had some initial discussions, but we haven't formalised anything at this stage. But absolutely, we know how important that grandfather clause is that sits in that unit of competency around at this stage. So yeah, more to come on that, I suppose, is the answer to that question. Any others?
There's two more in the chat for you, Brett, Phil, before we move on?
So more around teacher VCM requirements. Someone might have to tell me what the VCM requirements are.
Vocational currency, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and how much information is provided to ensure delivery is done by industry standards. Well, we will be putting some guidance around what we believe the industry standard is for, delivery of this qualification, if we're talking about the electrician qualification, but also all of our other qualifications as well. It's only guidance. We can't tell an RTO how to deliver a qualification, and I'm not sure, did we put it up in our last town hall, the sequence of the 30820? But if not, it's something we can add in. I think we did, but we can look at that again, or maybe add it to our chat or something, or rather. But yeah, we are looking at putting what the sequencing is. So as a technical committee comes together and the SME groups come together and we look at how the qualifications and the units of competency built, we're looking at how the qualification should be sequenced, and we can give some guidance on that and what industry best practice is and the way we think it should go. And we'll put a little block diagrams with the flow. But again, it is up to that RTO. They're the ones that need to deliver the qualification, and we can't give that compliance type information. Just got a hand up there from Brett.
Yeah, just wanted to follow up, just where they're talking about the VCM. So the VCM is current vocational currency matrix, and it's essentially, we use that statement in the capstone where it shows competency or currency for that unit. So that's why from RTO land, we like that, or something similar to that statement.
Okay. Yeah. So look, everybody in that development phase, in the process, the SMEs and the technical committees and PSOs, very aware of the grandfather clause. So we'll be working towards something that's compliant, that we can get in with our training packages to look at those sorts of things. How are we going there in the chat, Brett? Anything else that I've missed?
No, not really. Just Melissa's point around, which is you've sort of addressed. And she did mention appropriate plant and equipment required. There is a requirement in the TPOF to have an equipment list. So that will certainly be part of that. But Christina will be touching on that a bit more later.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say as well. So we've got a little section after we get through these bits about our feedback so far that Christina will go into about the CBIG and our IPM, our implementation, promotion and monitoring. So yeah.
And Rach has just popped up. Just remind everyone, if you could mute if you're not actually asking a question. Thank you. Rach has just popped into the chat that delivery sequence that we shared from the last town hall for the UEE.
Oh yeah, excellent.
308. Good. So just on the Cert 3 core only qualification drafts and summary of change that went up on the website, we've got some feedback here, and I might just go through these one by one, and then happy to take some questions at the end. So stakeholders raised concern about reduced flexibility due to the removal of electives. So the focus of this current core only draft was to reflect the licensing requirements, which are essentially based in the core of the qualification, and the qual being designed as a foundational trade outcome, which is a lot in alignment with the qualification reform project from DUA and the Purpose 1 qualification, which the electrician qual was identified as. So allowing for that to meet the requirements of that Purpose 1, which is the requirements of licensing. Our thoughts and from stakeholder feedback and working with the SMEs and the technical committee was the removal of the electives allows for strengthening of core units and additional information or performance criteria and performance evidence, knowledge evidence to be embedded into those core units to strengthen that the core. An example of that is we've been constantly told through our feedback in the early stages of this project that a big gap in the electrician training or the electrician tradespeople that are coming out at the end of it is around correct isolation procedures and testing and fault finding. So we're trying to embed that into as many units as we can, which obviously adds to those units of competency. So that flexibility that we actually get from removing the time taken for the electives allows for some more embedding more content into the core units of competency, and also to meet emerging skills, etc., where there's maybe additions to core units around emerging technology. So that's sort of our reasoning around behind why we're looking at that core only draft. Stakeholders indicated the draft appears to be aligned to domestic or low voltage work. Interesting, this one, the current draft has basically maintained the majority of the core unit structure, with all those units being obviously reviewed and redrafted to reflect changes in industry, as I said, and to provide clearer delivery to RTOs, which we've already talked about, trying to write the units to work better for training purposes. So that core unit structure still includes basically all the EL units that are in the current qual, which includes transformers, motors, control wiring, etc., which aren't domestic focus units at all. There is low voltage installation required in the qual for licensing. There's no getting around that. It forms part of the EPCs. But if you read most of the units where that installation work is done, there's no actual specific saying it's in domestic installations. So, you know, a lot of RDOs obviously cost things would mean if you're installing, you've got to install low voltage cable, for example, to a bit of equipment, they're probably going to use TPS because it's cheap, a lot cheaper than orange circular or you know, heavy duty steel wired armor. But we're still making sure that underpinning knowledge of all those other areas across the broad scope of industry is included. So while there is that perception of that it's a domestic qual, that if you look into the units, and particularly as that revision continues, we are trying to make that more flexible, that we're not, you know, saying that it needs to go to a lighting point or making it sound like it's a domestic. So if you want to do it as a more commercial installation, that flexibility's there. But obviously there is that cost factor. You look at a subboard, for example, you know, your plastic subboard from your standard one from the wholesalers is a lot cheaper than a metal one with bus bar, etc. But it's around making sure that there's a knowledge of all that across the scope, and then the practicals are up to the RDOs how they determine that they deliver those. If we can embed some flexibility, I'll wrap the last 2 points into one. So feedback highlighted limited alignment with industrial, heavy industry, automation, and renewables, and so there was noted concerns about whether the qualification reflects the full breadth of the electro-technology workforce. So again, the qualification is, you know, led by the license because that's the outcome of it. But it is intended to support broad electrical work. The core qualification, we're aiming for it to deliver broad trade capability, not that specialist depth. Emerging and sector-specific skills, the underpinning knowledge will be covered in the core units of competency, but then we think specialised training in diving deeper into those areas it really should be addressed post-trade. So let's give them the toolkit, for want of a better word, to become a licensed electrician, and then the skills depending on where you land in your full-time career, and that these days probably changes more frequently than it did when we went through, or I went through. People change career quite more often now, so that really being able to address those emerging skills post-trade, pick up what you need for your particular vocation that you're pursuing as an electrician, or the scope of the work. So I guess in closing, our position is to maintain a strong core only qualification aligned to licensing, leveraging post-trade skill sets to address, those specialisation areas. So happy to open up to questioning on this one. Well, thanks, Kirsty.
I'm not sure if this quite aligns with this area, but it's just something that's playing in my mind. The qualification, is it looking, so currently we have units sort of saying that they can't be simulated. So therefore that really puts it in the place of these have to be apprentices to do this work because it's licensed work. Is this going to be the same sort of vibe we're having with the new qualification? Or have I really gone down the wrong track there? Because one thing I got this week was there was an RTO in another state. The students come to me with the qualification, which was done fully simulated, and our electrical safety officer said that they won't recognise it, and I didn't actually understand based on the ask or the training.gov how they could have done it.
Yeah, and
will we have similar wording in it that says that it shouldn't be simulated? It's not allowed to be simulated?
So referring to the hashtags in those units, Kirsty, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
So we will be removing the hashtags, but we have got, and you'll see just as names in the draft qualification, some units around gathering workplace evidence. They're still very much in draft and working with our tech committee around how we address that. But it's certainly our intent that you shouldn't be able to do the whole qualification institutionally, that it should be tied to an apprenticeship, but we can't specifically write in that it's tied to an apprenticeship. We just had a catch up with ASQA this week, and as much as they'd like that in there, they know it can't go in there as well. But yeah, we are certainly trying to address that, but knowing that the hashtags have caused problems as well around what they're aligned to. But we certainly want to embed that you need to be doing some workplace evidence, but what that looks like is still a work in progress at the moment. So, but that'll be standalone units as separate from the
individual core units, from the other individual core units.
Yeah.
So
correct.
I suppose can they deliver it fully simulated, even though it says it's not allowed to be fully simulated?
The current qual, I wouldn't think so, because you've got to meet those hashtags. So you'd need to have evidence of how they were done.
Collected in the workplace. Yeah.
Is that Sue Shepherd?
Just a quick question. I know I haven't read all of the drafts in 3080 yet, so the answer may be in there. Just in the way that the wording is written, will we be able to contextualise things so that we can incorporate renewables and automation and new technology within the units? So, for instance, smart homes, where they use the smartphones to operate different things within the house, or reading inverters from your smartphone, etc., all those sorts of things. Are we going to be able to incorporate that? Is the wording going to be set so that we can still incorporate that contextualisation into the units where appropriate?
Yeah, and Phil might pick up on me from this, because we've actually been working on a draft at the moment for an EL unit, but I'll throw to him. But embedding all that stuff specifically in the knowledge, and then in the performance referencing that you install equipment, and that way you can select the equipment to contextualise to your IDO space. Is that a fair assumption, Phil?
Yeah, I think I think Sue's pretty much on the right track of where we want to go. Like, the idea is that while we're reviewing all of the units of competency, we want to make sure that, yes, there is specific equipment in there, but we also need that contextualisation. So some of our qualifications were very specific in the requirements that needed to be done and didn't help with that contextualisation. So as we are going through and reviewing our units of competency, we are making it easier to contextualise, but then we're using our assessment conditions to say in what environment must those conditions take place. So they're working side by side, whereas you can contextualise it. say, as long as you're in the electrotechnology environment or the renewables environment, and you can use the different pieces of equipment or contextualize for those students that might be in a different situation. So absolutely, the idea is that we're going down that path, Sue, for sure.
Brilliant, thank you.
And Patrick?
Yeah, just the conversation we were having before about the processes of qualification being done under simulation. What you're talking about there is Cricos and the bane of my existence of the electrical qualification being done by Cricos students. So, and how they get the qual, but in effect what they're doing, they're issuing the qual, but they believe that they don't get the license, and as you're rightly so, the I just look
Lots of thumbs up.
I could,
some people
I
stick
think,
two
Patrick,
thumbs
you
up
just
there.
got a standing ovation from the crowd.
Yeah, well, there you go, boys. It is a hot point.
Yeah, and it has been identified. It's probably outside of the scope of this project, the Cricos conversation.
I understand.
But it is something as PSO that we can certainly take
the
into
situation
consideration.
it has. Yeah, we can't write it in because I'm well aware of the tip-off points, but there is a point that why there should be a situation where people can't sell a product that can't be used
to get a license.
Right. Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Yeah. And I just say, with all that, the clapping and the thumbs up and all that sort of thing, if there's any concerns, please write to PSO. And with all the stakeholders providing us with that evidence that you've got and all those people's concerns there, please write it to us, and we can progress that further through our channels and look into those sorts of things as well. So yeah.
And might get Rach just to pop that training ad in it. Yep, she's onto it. That's our best email address. You can go through the website and put in it's probably doesn't fall under a case for change, that sort of thing around those issues. That's more probably an email because you can put a bit more detail into it, and we can sort of collaborate those and push that further, because it's certainly been raised with us before, and the whole Cricos situation when we've got a recognised trades recognition pathway. But and as you said, it's not leading to a license in most jurisdictions. So it's been sold, but the poor people who sign up for it aren't informed that until right at the end. Any more on the Cert 3 electrician?
All right, that'd be me. Yeah, so I mean that conversation probably leads on well to this conversation that we've had now, or these concerns that's been raised, and when it's becoming too compliance driven, it's mainly around the administrative burden of the profiling and workplace evidence and profiling requirements and all that. So this is by no means a small question or concern or anything like that. I just suppose I'll let you know where we're at this stage, is that we've addressed it with our overarching technical committee that has discussed the workplace evidence in quite some detail. In the last week or so, we have put out to our SMEs the concept that I'll talk about now, but we do take all of those things on board about the workplace evidence. And I suppose the main thing that comes back, and it probably goes to some of that conversation we just had, that we don't want the electrician qualification to become an institutionalized delivery. And then again, we don't want it to be a workplace delivery only. So we want something in between where people attend a college or a trade school, but also go out to work. And yes, the best model for that is an apprenticeship. Unfortunately, in our TPOF requirements, we can't state that this qualification must be done under an apprenticeship. So we have to look at different ways of providing what our industry want in the terms of making sure that those requirements that we all know and want to talk about are satisfied. And at the moment, there is a profiling system out there, and the feedback we get at the moment, whether it's around those hashtags or the way the evidence is collected and those sorts of things, is it's become a real burden. It's become a little bit disjointed in the way that evidence is collected, and a lot of people are unsure about what they should be collecting or how they should be collecting it, and employers signing off on it, and apprentices and RTOs. And so what we're trying to do and what we've drafted up is 2 units of competency that we hope will aid in the collection of workplace evidence. Now, the idea is that we start off at the early stages of the apprenticeship with a unit of competency that is similar probably to the old competency development type unit, if you want to put it in that mixed, where we look at those induction principles of what an apprentice needs when they start in their apprenticeship or their contract of training. We look at inductions, we look at, rights, responsibilities of all those, of the different people who are involved in the contract of training, employers, apprentices and RTOs, and what each of those things bring to the table when it comes to that contract of training. Then we move into the workplace evidence collection and how that needs to be done. And what we put together is a unit that basically has some instruction around what needs to be collected throughout an apprenticeship. So we're saying that in the early stages of the apprenticeship, you start a workplace evidence portfolio, and you can collect evidence throughout your apprenticeship that then is followed up with a unit of competency before capstone is undertaken or the EL39 is undertaken. And in that last unit of competency, that workplace evidence portfolio is assessed by the RTO or by the trainer to make sure that they have a completed portfolio of evidence showing progression through their contract of training. So what they've done in the way of, has their supervision gone from, a lot of supervision to minimal supervision? Have their tasks increased from this? Do they have a broad range of experience throughout their contract of training, and all those sorts of things? With the apprentice looking at what gaps they might have when they get to the end, So in the beginning, they're working out, well, I work with this employer. Can this employer provide me with all the work that I need to be able to take all the units of competency within my qualification? Will I get a broad range of experience throughout my training with this employer? Now, if they do a little competency development plan in that unit and work out, what they've done previously in their life, what they're going to get from their experience in their contract of training, then by the time they get to the end, there shouldn't be any gaps. But when they do, if they do get to the end and there is some gaps along the way, this will be picked up by the apprentice and the training organisation or the trainer that's assessing it and say, look, you've got lacking a bit of experience in this certain area. It's going to affect the way that you move into your last unit of competency, and we don't think you'll be able to complete that successfully. We need to work on these gaps before you can do this unit. So that's what we're looking at there. We're not looking at increasing the burden, but there is a responsibility for all of the people in that contract of training. There's a responsibility for the apprentice to undertake some workplace evidence. They've got to gather the evidence. They're doing the apprenticeship. They need to take some responsibility on this. The employer has employed the apprentice. So the employer has to take responsibility to say, I can give my apprentice a broad range of electrical work as per most of the state jurisdictions, can't get the words out, that they must do these things. That's what most of the training contracts say, that they must undertake a broad range of electrical activities. If they can't take on an apprentice. And then, and then the RTO to sign off and monitor throughout the apprenticeship the workplace evidence collection. Not just at a point in time, whether that's at the start or whether it's at the end. So we're trying to bookend that process to make sure that there is some workplace evidence of tasks that are taking place out in industry and those requirements. So yeah, that's the 2 units of competency that you would have seen in that 308 draft that went out for the electrician qualification. And I think it was 3001, an EL unit, and a 3099 or 099, sorry. They were the 2 units of competency. So I hope that explains a little bit about that. And yes, there is some detail to come with those units of competency. Of course, as we know, it does rely on what's written in there, but it has gone out with our SME. So if you do know, you've got colleagues that are sitting on the SME groups, the broad electrical group, have a word to them. They've got the units of competency. They're reviewing them now. And then in future town halls, hopefully we can bring that back to this group as well and give you some further information on that. So, yeah. Any questions on that? I'm sure there's probably a couple.
I might just pick up on one from Melissa in the chat about the metals training package. And I think when it went into the chat, it was in reference to when you were talking about we can't say it needs to be done under apprenticeship. And she said they did it in the metals training package. Why not the UEE? That was under the old system, Melissa, and we have actually talked about that wording to the assurance body, and they wouldn't be accepting that going forward. And it has caused quite a few problems in the metals as well that were not anticipated with the way that wording was put into their training package. So yeah, that's why we won't be going down the MEM path, because it also took about 3 years to get endorsed, that MEM training package with the skills ministers.
And I think there was another comment from Brett about specialised employers. Well, I think that's a good point, and we know there's a broad range of employers out there, and I don't want to debate what's specialised and not specialised, but in the workplace evidence system that we're looking at, the 2-unit system, while we're not going to try to specify you must do this particular thing 3 times and this particular thing 5 times and that sort of thing. Look, if that apprentice is getting a broad scope of industry experience, I don't think anyone has a real problem with that. And I think if they can provide evidence of that broad scope of work and the supervision going from a lot of supervision to minimal supervision and a broad range of tasks, I don't think there's a real concern from people. Yes, there might be some really specialised things that will be a problem, and some of the bigger organisations do deal with it by, their apprentices will go with other trades, other areas to get that training. But yeah, the electrician qual is very broad. Christina?
And just to add to that, the way that these 2 units will be worked, especially the last unit, it will be what you would see across the range of the workplace. So for argument's sake, fault finding, install, like common skills that people would need to do regardless of the work environment that they're in. On top of that, the units, when you're signing up an apprentice under the training contract, you'd still have those where you're specialised, or you'd still have your simulated availability. But these particular units would not, they would be an overarching skill demonstration that is consistent no matter which area you work in.
We've got Patrick, is it? Yep, Patrick.
Yep, yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I go along with that idea. I think, one of our, on the slide there, that, our qualifications become too compliance driven. And I believe that's the case because even inside our current nationally common skills tracking system, it's quite ludicrous that, a person can be stopped from attending capstone because he never ticked off that he'd done a proximity switch back in first year. That's a ludicrous situation, but it's the fact that all of us on this have actually encountered. So I go with it. There's got to be a better way of doing it without making it so hard to create that the compliance world, and particularly now where we're getting the AI world coming to probably look at this, they're going to want to see it's got to be a broader type of thing than, you've got to do a proximity switch 3 times. It gets very awkward. We all know what we mean. And it'd be great to see the in-depth bits of those particular units. And I'll probably have to go back and dive in and see them if they're ready to be having a look at. That's all.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Patrick.
Just one in the chat, Phil, from Sue, and I'll just summarise it. It's more concern over the portfolio, so it might be key to being onerous to implement and follow up with students, and they currently have trouble doing their profiling as it is. So might just explain around that portfolio what we mean by that, and around that it could be one of the current systems.
Yeah. So look, we're not documenting what type of system is used to collect the workplace evidence. So there's many systems out there at the moment. So it could be anything from a electronic portfolio. In some cases, it might be a paper-based portfolio with photographs in there. There will be touch points within the unit of competency, the final unit of competency, and as Christina mentioned, testing and verification is one of those points that you'll need to see. You'll need to see installation because the unit of qualification is about installation of electrical equipment and that. So you will need to see installation. You will need to see testing and verification. And we do have 4 or 5 points in there that are sort of call them critical points, but the points that must see done over that broad range of the apprenticeship. I'm not sure if I really answered the question or not, but it is, and look, we're going to put some guidance within this again, and I know we harp on it quite a bit, and Christina will talk on the companion volumes and the IPM, but we don't want to drop training units or training packages onto RTOs, employers, apprentices without that guidance. We want to make sure that you know how to deliver a unit of competency or a qualification. So there will be guidance around making sure they do it. And yes, the apprentices, the employers, they will all need buy-in for a system to work. And look, anyone who wants to shortcut a system can shortcut any system. There's no stopping that. But we can hopefully make it better than some of the systems that have been around in the past. And I think there was a comment about employers. So look, we're still looking to capture employer sign-off within this. They're out in the workplace. As I said before, the employer hasn't employed the apprentice, and there isn't a responsibility there. So they will have to sign off on the workplace evidence. And it will have to have an electrical license to sign off on the work that they've seen an apprentice do. Who we got there? I can see another hand up. Michael.
Afternoon, gentlemen. My apologies for the camera. I'm not in a position where I can turn it on.
No, that's fine.
I look after portfolios at Granville TAFE, and we're probably one of the lowest common denominators in this whole system in terms of reliable workplace evidence, if you like. So we have a system where not only are the students providing evidence that they've probably done what they said within the electrical trade, but with their actual employment. We've had situations where students have provided a multitude of forged documents. We have employers that don't care, can't be contacted, etc. And whilst I understand, like, there's a lot of places are concerned about the process becoming incredibly onerous, because a lot of the things are a little prescriptive, like you're saying, and I thoroughly agree that it needs to be a little bit more broad and pick up the underpinning knowledge as opposed to specifics of how many PowerPoints you did this week. We still have to look at the other end of it, where we are. Picture the 20-year-old Telstra van with a ratty bundle of conduit and a couple of aluminium ladders. We get those apprentices.
Yeah.
All right. So are you really happy with not looking and not verifying that they have done what they are supposed to have done and releasing them into the wild with an electrical license? I see that as not being much different to the tick and flick approach of a lot of the private RTOs that we see out there, which is not to say they're all bad, because there's certainly ones out there that are credible. But I mean, with what was it, 24,000 qualifications rescinded by ASQA last year of private RTOs, that's something we certainly have to consider. And if we can embed that into the units of competency, particularly those that are looking at the workplace evidence, I think that we have that opportunity to do something with that now. I'm more than happy to have a discussion with anyone in regard to how we do things and what we look at and why we look at it, at a later date if you wish. But as I said, I think we are probably, and no disrespect to our students, but at the bottom of the barrel with what we get. We do get some good guys through and get them in and out, but also some of the other things that we see being done out there. We see a lot of those low-end employers who are just abusing the kids as cheap labour. And I think that's something that we need to sort of take into consideration with whatever we do with this training package.
Yeah, no, thanks for the comment, Michael. And look, through the feedback we've received, I can say you're not alone. There are quite a lot of feedback that we've received. It's been in the similar vein, and look, to be honest, we like to have those conversations. So definitely drop us an email, and we can have some further conversations and pick up some of your pain points.
And some of that goes broader than what the qualification can address. We've got to be careful about trying to ring fence in the qualification, for want of a better word, and creating problems for the RDOs and the employers that are doing the right thing by trying to capture in a qualification the ones that are doing the wrong thing. We do have, in every state, they've got a different name, but the apprenticeship, Australian apprenticeships, sort of covers it. All states have different providers of that, but they're the ones who are signing up the contract and should be checking scope of work as well. But we can certainly, if you provide information to us, we can be the conduit between industry and those support networks as well.
Yeah, and I suppose when we look at training packages as a whole, the training package is the minimum requirement. That's what it is. It's the minimum requirement, and the RTOs can go over and above in whichever way they like. But Brett probably covered it. But a training product, we're not the police. We can't write in, all the requirements to stop people doing this and stop people. It's just impossible to do. So, but we do want to try and get it right, and love to, if you've got those concerns, please contact us on our training email, and we'd love to have those conversations for sure. So any more on our workplace evidence? Great conversations.
All right. Well, we have focused pretty heavily on the Cert 3 electrician qual, so we might broaden it out to the whole UEE training package. And key messages from stakeholders to us has been really clear from the outset of Powering Skills becoming the Jobs and Skills Council that looks after the UEE training package. And you could add UET to that and the other ones, but probably the two big ones we get a lot of stakeholder engagement from is UEE and UET. And that feedback has been really around that the UEE training package needs to better reflect the way industry's changing. There's strong demand for training products that recognise automation, digital systems, smart technologies, industrial control, data connectivity, renewable technologies. But at the same time as that, stakeholders have been equally clear that modernisation can't dilute those core practical and technical capabilities that sit in the heart of the UEE, in this instance, training package. So our task at PSO, because it's quite simple, is to strike the right balance and provide a modern, flexible and future-focused, but still technically robust, safety-focused and suitable for licensing and regulatory environments where applicable, training products. So that's our focus at the moment is those areas. So in this project, to support that, we've consulted widely across the project before we even started drafting. And then once we started developing the training products, which we have talked about before in this forum, we developed those 10 SME groups. And the reason that was important is to capture the different parts of UEE that have different technical needs. It also allows us to test whether, with those SME groups, whether draft products reflect current industry practice, while ensuring there's enough flexibility for RDOs and industry to contextualise delivery for emerging technologies as they continue to evolve. So the intent's not to write training products that lock industry into a single technology or a point of time. The intent is to describe the skills and knowledge clearly enough to support consistent national outcomes, while allowing the application across current industry and future industry contexts. This is how we can keep the training package relevant, practical and future ready. And I guess the ask from this group is as we move through the next stages of the development, the feedback we're looking for is not only whether the draft products address the right technologies, but whether the skills and knowledge and assessment expectations are pitched at the right level, are practical to deliver, and remain relevant as industry continues to evolve. So happy to open up to the group around, a bit of a wider UEE focus. We have been very much on the electrician Cert 3, which is, our highest enrolment qual. But if there's any questions or comments around the rest of the UEE, trying to keep that meeting the emerging technologies that are here now, but having that future focus and being able to provide a product that can be contextualised or to address those changing techs and all those different areas that are growing rapidly, automation, particularly, digital literacy, etc. No, happy to move on, but yeah, that is our goal, is all of what I covered there to end up with a really good UEE training package that suits industry now and into the future and allows for that flexible delivery, I guess, in summing up.
So some of the other feedback was around the renewable energy and sustainability. Always big talking points when we come to qualifications, and I suppose it must be said that we are reviewing our renewable energy units of competency as well as our Cert 4 in renewable energy, and really interesting topic when we talk about renewable energy, and we get a lot of feedback about renewable energy, but when it comes to actual enrolments into renewable energy qualifications, they are minimal. So we've taken a lot of feedback on board and working with our SMEs to look at a new renewable energy Cert 4 where we're looking to have a really great group of core units that add value to someone who has come through a Cert 3 pathway and moving into that energy renewable space. Alongside that, groups of electives that look at you know, your solar and your PV, your grid connect, your EVs, and even some inspection of renewable energy systems that will be fed out into skill sets that we hope will be used a lot better than the group of skill sets that are out there at present. So our idea with renewable energy, when we look at our adding this information into our other units of competency and qualifications, is to integrate it into the relevant units of competency, as treating it as a standalone type topic. We had the RE unit in the electrician qualification, and in our latest draft have removed that because the feedback we got was that the RE unit was just not suitable. It was out of date. It wasn't really for that qualification, but what people wanted was to see a broad range of this information added into the units of competency, where if you're undertaking a unit of competency, and an example of that is some of the information that we'll have in the units of competency in our EL9 unit, where we're going to be looking at, you know, the interaction between electrical apparatus systems, but applying sustainable work practices and the appropriate management of materials related to those units of competency when you're undertaking those ones. And we're looking at sustainable principles in electrical work, which would be sitting in the knowledge component of different units of competency, but reflected into that task that has been undertaken, or that unit of competency. So it's not just ticking the renewable box, it's and sustainable box. It's applying that to the unit of competency that's taking place. So if you're wiring something up, how can you look at sustainability in that, recycling your materials, or using less materials, or doing it better in a way? How is the energy that you're using going to affect the renewable components of a unit of competency that you're undertaking? So we're looking at embedding that core skills and knowledge into there. Now, in saying that, within our Cert 2 qualifications, we think the renewable and the sustainability and energy efficiency is very important for the students to be learning about as well. So we've added more units of competency into the Cert 2s that we're doing. Our new gateway qualification has probably 2 or 3 units of competency that talk about energy efficiency within that air conditioning and refrigeration space, within the WHS components, and what we play out. So, and then adding that into our Cert 2 electrotechnology as well. So from there, the students who are potentially going into the energy sector have a great understanding of renewable energy and sustainability within those skills, and then apply that skills and knowledge into the units of competency that they're undertaking within that Cert 3. So I hope that explains a little bit about that. And also, I suppose, one unit we have beefed up, and it's come back to us through our interactions with the regulators throughout the country, is that one of the big touch points for electricians is within that isolation, or that identification of additional energy resources that might come about. Now, that's one place where the common apprentice or the common electrician will come into contact with those renewable or those alternate energy systems. So in one of our units, EL47, that was in our, or is in the current qualification, has really been focused on with the content for diving deeper into identifying those alternate energy suppliers, isolating those alternate energy suppliers as well. So when people are working on premises that they have safely isolated and there's no chance of electrical incidences that may occur, because as I said, that feedback coming back from regulators was very strong in that identification of alternate energy supplies. Christina?
Just on this one as well, we've talked about the Cert 2 and the Cert 3s and how it's been embedded. The renewable energy and sustainability practices will be embedded all the way up into units of competency, absolutely, all the way up to your advanced diplomas. So these are really important skills that workers need to have, and they vary as you change roles within the industry. So when you're a trade person, it's the job or the task related to what you're doing on the tools. But once you move into, say, the diploma and advanced diploma space, you're looking at the systems that are implemented to ensure that workers are working sustainably within the workplace and in the industry. So this has been addressed right from, across the training package, not just within a couple of qualifications.
Thanks, Christina. Any other questions? Any thoughts? There's been a few little comments about the CVIG, and I think Christina's going to touch on that next. So we'll leave that for next. Yeah, any other thoughts, comments? Excellent. All right, I think we'll move on. And of course, just keep those comments and feedback coming on about, as you look at more of our qualifications and that. And if you feed us in if there's anything you'd like to discuss at the town hall specifically around these, please sing out. Thanks.
Alrighty-o. So we've talked about the feedback so far that we've received, and hopefully that's provided some clarity or some certainty that these issues that have been raised by our current stakeholders, we are aware and we are addressing a lot of these issues, and we've got them in hand. And addressing them as we go through this development. I can assure you there's lots of thinking and debating internally around these things as we go forward. But one of the things that we are very, very aware of, and part of the TPOF, is your companion volume implementation guide. That is a training product, and it's part of our remit to develop this the CVIG and release that as part of the training products with the UEE training package. It will sit on the National Register for you to access. But PSO also now, under this new Jobs and Skills Council's remit, we can't just leave. Once we put out the training product and put it up on TGA and go, righty-o, all those RTOs out there, you've got 12 months to transition, and go, job well done, high five each other, and off we go, and good luck to the rest of you. That's not part of this model. We have this IPM function now, and it's called Implementation, Promotion and Monitoring, IPM for short. So when we talk IPM, we're talking about how do we support the RTOs in particular implement this? How do we support the promotion of this so that everyone, not just RTOs, but employers, your ASINs, your regulators, your union members, all of those people have awareness of what needs to be or what has happened and why it's happened? And then we also have to monitor this, and the uptake, the usage, and where there are things that need to be amended, we start to gather that feedback through our monitoring process. Why do we need to make this really clear for you, and why, or what is the difference, and why does the differentiation matter? Because there is two things that we need to really call out for you in terms of this. The companion volume is a TPOF compliance requirement. It will be released with the training product up onto training.gov the day that you are notified that we've got the new qualifications and new training products available for delivery. And you enter into that whole review process. IPM is about how training products are used and adopted by our stakeholders. So this is after endorsement. Currently, PSO is setting up a function called IPM within our organisation. We are dedicating and going to build out a team of people to help develop IPM artifacts to support RTOs and our stakeholders uptake the training products and deliver it in the way that we intend it to be delivered, or to support you in understanding how to implement it and promote it. So we're looking at things like fact sheets for schools, educators, industry, your learners, some of the things that you've been talking about in terms of that gap mapping, that being part of your IPM process, that kind of thing. Our CVIG is very clear on what is required under the TPOF. It is about the structure and formatting of your qualifications, units and skill set, mapping advice, that really high level, superseded, not superseded, new, deleted, that kind of stuff. It's about providing consistency in drafting and terminology, and the expectation of quality and compliance as well. Those things are required within the CVIG and will be part of when we put it up onto training.gov. The IPM artifacts, so all the bits and pieces that help you implement it and get it up on scope and running with it really quickly, because that's what IPM is about, supporting you transition or trying to help you lessen the burden and the stress. We've all been there of transitions. Trying to help you, provide you with that guidance so that you can transition, mitigate the stress is probably the best way to put it, so that you're not sitting there crying a couple of months into this going, oh my God, what have PSO done to us? So that's what the difference is. IPM are the artifacts to help you. The CVIG is a TPOF compliance document that is similar to what you see on training.gov now. But what we've also identified within that is that there's been a lot of copies and paste from 7 to 11 to 20, and there's lots of errors in it. So we're refreshing all of that as well. And then because we also look after UET, PNG, they're all written differently, believe it or not, which we've inherited. So we will be essentially rewriting the CVIG and then using that template to support all of our other training products when we go through this full review with them as well. So with that all being said and done, if we go down to the next slide, we do want, and I'm going to put up a poll for you now, we do want to hear from you as to what you want to see in the companion volume or even in your IPM artifacts. Tell us what you want. We don't know what you want. We can't talk to our IPM team, or we can't start thinking about those things as we're developing these units of competency and qualifications if we don't know what you need. So we want to make sure that there is clarity and usability. We want to make sure that the CVIC is easier to understand and that you will actually refer to it. And for all those conversations around ASQA and their regulatory function, supporting ASQA and understanding what we mean when we say particular words and terminology and what have you, so that they have the ability to do their regulatory function. Where we also would like you to talk or tell us where you currently find things unclear and inconsistent so that we can avoid that. And then what we want you to think about are what improvements we could put into this. So what is one thing that you might would like to see changed immediately? What's missing that could make a big difference to you? So essentially, I'm going to launch this poll right now. We just want to know what would make your job easier and what would you like to see as part of the companion volume or the implementation artifacts. Or even think about your promotion artifacts. You've got to talk to your students, your employers, your ASINs, all of those people. Do you need fact sheets from us to help you communicate that? Do you need media fact sheets to help you update your website content to help you when you're talking to your internal comms team to help with that? So tell us what you want. I can't guarantee that we're going to be able to provide everything, but we will try our best. Yeah.
Deadly silence. What have you done?
Oh, Paul, as people are thinking. Rach, I might share my screen because I've got the oh no, I can't. I won't because I'll break it. There's been conversations in there about resources. Do you need a minimum resource list? Because I know that's part of your TAS. And let me, while you're doing that, I'm going to give Rach access to this poll so we can bring up the spreadsheet. So you can all have a look at what we're saying. Oh. Just hide some columns where we've got your names and Rach. I'm just going to chuck it over into our normal chat, the link to the spreadsheet if you want to bring it up. Rightio. So me have a look. Rach, I might just take over for a second. Is that okay, my love?
Yeah, that's fine. It's not letting me open it.
Sorry. Boo. Rightio. So some of the things we've got. Mapping documents that clearly outline gap training, impacts on students who need to transition to non-equivalent units. So gap training's coming through loud and clear, not a surprise. Clear information of what industry expectations for the delivery of particular units, transition mapping, common resources, equipment and resources list by unit of competency, common assessment. We might need to drill into that, so I might reach out to that person in terms of what you mean by that, because we are not a learning and assessment developers. But if you want to talk to that now, you can. Yeah, transition mapping, accreditation for regulators for, okay. Are we talking about the pink slip model that was yesteryears? Volume of learning for each unit of competency. We've got some specific information that ASINs need to look at when signing up electrical apprentices, minimum workplace requirements, evaluation, employer evaluation guides, a guide for certain employers' capacity, on-the-job training, gap equipment upskilling for educators. That's really important too, isn't it? Some guidance like the old EOS pink slip. Thanks, Patrick. We might have a copy of that around the place as well, you know. While we're continuing, that's really good feedback for now. I really appreciate that. We'll send this out as a copy for you as part of the minutes. A lot of those things I can tell you we have thought about and we are looking at as well. So we understand that, especially when it comes to the gap, that's an issue. Resource and equipment lists are really important to help you with your training and assessment strategies. We know that that volume of learning, while we can't mandate that type of stuff, it can help you when you're looking at delivery sequence or recommended delivery sequence pathways. That's, you know, we're looking at all of those things, and you'll see a lot of that in our CVIG, but if it doesn't fit within that, we will be talking to our IPM friends around the types of resources that you are looking at for implementation artifacts. So thank you very, very much on that. Rach? All right, last one. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see this one either because it's not showing up on your screen there. But what I will do for you all is put the link into the chat. Didn't work very well, did it? So at the beginning of this year, we committed to running these town halls every 2 months for you, and we had specific topics that we wanted to talk to you about in these sessions, and we mapped that out until June. And now that we are in June, we have the ability to now ask you what you want to hear for the rest of this year in these town hall meetings. We want to make sure that these meetings are relevant to you and you keep coming back. So what the question is, and if in the chat there I've put the link, and I'm just going to give Rach the QR code so she can upload the QR or bring the QR code up on the website on the screen for you all. We want to know what type of topics you want to talk to us about moving forward, or what you want to hear from us for the rest of this year. So another couple of minutes to write that, and then
We've just got Sarah with her hand up there.
Yep.
Christina.
Yep, Sarah.
Hi, Christina. Sorry, my hand was up for a little while. I just had a comment about the CVIG. We've noticed, and I know we've had discussions with you guys a little bit on this, about Australian standards and them being referenced in the CVIG. We're opposed to that. We want to see that because it's such prescriptive content. We want to see that back in the UACs where it's missing at the moment, because we don't understand how that can be assessed properly if you're not directly mentioning specific standards and specific parts of standards in there. So that was something that, like, as you guys are aware, we're not happy about that at all from an ETU point of view. I think that it'd be good to see what other people think about that. I haven't heard a lot of commentary about it from this group at this point. I might have missed it because I did come in late.
Yep, and Brett's got his hand up. So Brett.
Yeah, it's Sarah, and I think we did bring this up at the SME group, and there is some drafts where it's clear that in the instance of AS3000, it is directly mentioned. So I think there's been a little bit of a misunderstanding how that was interpreted, and I think it was from a potentially hazardous areas group or something when it was first sort of socialised. It was more around where there's a generic statement about referencing standards. It's already sort of embedded in the product. If we're bringing that across, expanding that out in the CVIG to say if we're talking about local jurisdiction, we're referencing this and really expanding that out. There certainly won't be where there's direct reference required to Australian standards like AS3000 is a big one, AS3008 if we're talking about cable selection. Again, back and focused on the electrical qual, they'll remain, and if you look in some of the drafts that are available, they're certainly embedded in those drafts. So it's more about where there's that generic, if it references local jurisdictional stuff, we really want to flush that out in the CVIG. So
we're just
happy to have a chat with you offline about that.
Yeah, sure. We were just concerned that given that we're using template A, which is designed for trades like ours, which are very technical and prescriptive, that we're seeing a lot of those prescriptive requirements disappear out of the units of competency compared to what we were expecting to see. But I'm sure it'll get sorted out as we continue through the process between now and the end of the year.
Thanks, Sarah.
Chris?
Yeah, I brought it up in the chat earlier on, just about the Certificate 3 in electrical fitting, whether or not you're going down a core-only structure down in that pathway. The response was no. I just want to know if there was a reasoning behind that, that's all. Because we do a fair few electrical fitters here at North Metro TAFE. So I just want to know if there was a rationale behind that, that was all.
Yeah. Brett, you want to go with the fitting one or?
And sorry, I just missed the start of that. Was that why is a fitter not core only?
Yeah. Or maybe where we're leaning towards at the moment.
So Chris, at the moment, we do have a draft that we're working on to take back to the technical committee around combining the fitter with a couple of other qualifications and having it as a specialisation within that qualification. So there would be a base core, and the other quals are the Cert 3 motor rewind and the Cert 3 switch gear and control gear, I think it's called. So having 3 different specialisations with a base core. We took that to our tech committee, but we need to do a bit of a rework, and we're putting some stuff together for the next week's technical committee on that. So that's where we're leaning with that. So there would be a core, and then there would be, in the instance of that, we're calling Group A as the electrical fitter specialisation, and that would include basically all the existing core units revised. So the base core would be the common core that's common across the 3 of them. The Group A at this stage, elect fitter specialisation, would include the rest of the units that are core in that current fitter qual or some adaptions of those units. And then we do have a general elective bank, and we're just up for discussion at the moment around how many general electives would require, and we're leaning towards only just a couple in that space. So effectively, it wouldn't be core only because it's a specialisation, so you have to have an elective bank, but there wouldn't be the larger number of electives that there currently are.
Yeah, no worries. So going down the similar route of what you're doing with the electronics quals, going overall.
Yeah, very similar. If you've seen anything around there to get the specialisation, yep.
Yeah, no dramas. No, all good. Thanks for that.
No worries. Okie dokie. Thank you for providing some topics. I hope you are enjoying these sessions. If we go to the next slide, Rach, there is a question from Patricia in the chat around, are we going to release any more quals with just one unit change? The answer is definitely not. And this is the whole reason why we're doing the full UEE review. When we updated the refridge unit RA51 and the impact that that had on the on 7 qualifications because of one unit, most of us coming from a RTO land all felt really sick as to the impact that it had on you all. And then plus with the EPC changes, what we would have to do in terms of updating units to align with the EPC requirements and the impact that that would have on a lot of qualifications. This is why we're doing the full review, to minimise that. So the answer, the long and short of it is definitely no. It will be next year, and then you get all of it, Trish, and the 28 quals that you've got on scope. Good luck with that.
No worries. Thanks, Christina.
Yeah, as the previous product lead of TAFE Queensland, I say I take my hat off to you. Any other questions or discussions? Noting we've got 12 minutes to go. Lots of questions throughout the session, which has been fantastic. If not, over to the next slide. As you know, we love our sentiments here at PSO, and we really like your feedback. So up on the screen, we've got your QR code. It's literally 2 questions, and we would love for you to fill that out. Rach has put the link to the survey in the chat if you don't want to get your phones out. Can I ask that you take 1 minute to fill out the 2 really difficult questions that we ask of you? Okie dokie. And if we've got no more questions or comments or concerns, the next town hall meeting is on the 17th of August. And we very much look forward to seeing you there. We will have a lot of qualifications ready for you to review. We will go through the feedback again that we receive to help clarify anything that may be of concern. If you know that date and you've got questions, make sure you send your questions prior to that meeting. We're more than happy to put them into these sessions. These sessions are for you. So we want to make sure that they meet your needs. And if that's all, thank you again for joining us, and have a great afternoon wherever you are. Yes.
Bye, all.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you all.
See ya.
You don't read your text, Christina.
Busy, Paul.
I'm sorry.